Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Grace Note on easy relationships. So relationships seem to be an area that are coming up a lot for people, and not surprisingly, relationships are an area that we cannot avoid, even if we keep ourselves locked in our apartments without going out for weeks on end. At some point, we do have to come into contact with other people. So this particular Grace Note will speak to you today if you've been having difficult relationships with people, if you've been feeling stressed about certain people in your life, if you're in a marriage or a partnership or relationship romantically and you don't feel satisfied. But really it goes across the whole board of relationships. So let me talk to you about what I see as easy when it comes to relationships, no matter how difficult the person in front of you might be. And I have a few examples to share, so bear with me on this one, but I know you'll hear something. Like every video I do, this isn't about you learning something new. It's about you sitting there taking notes. It's about you sitting back, relaxing, and receiving the feeling that speaks most to you. So this hopefully will lead to a feeling of easiness for you when it comes to relationships. So I have been in romantic relationship for 11 years now, and I would say the first 10 years, so the majority of the relationship was very on and off. I was extremely uncertain as to whether or not I was in the right relationship. Was I with the right person? Was I in the right place? And this constant questioning in my mind made it very difficult to be present to my partner and also to my environment and to the moment. So if you can imagine, like when you're always questioning where you're at and if you should be somewhere else and if you're with the right person, it leaves very little room for connection. So my experience of romantic relationship was on and off. In fact, I kept leaving my relationship, convinced every time I left that I'd made the right decision, only to find that within a number of days or a few weeks, my thinking about my man changed. And I suddenly began to see that my experience was coming not from him, but from the thinking I was in at the time. Now, when we initially fall in love, it seems to me we're not in judgmental thinking. We're in loving thought. We're in happy thought. We're in excited thought. And over time, as we begin to form opinions, ideas, as the mind begins to evaluate and become noisy, it's very easy to fall into judgmental thinking. And what I've seen about that is the only thing that takes us away from loving the person in front of us, whether it's our partner, our parents, our children, I'm sure, our best friend, our dogs, whoever. Like the only thing that really takes us away from that deep sense of love and connection, which is our true nature, is when we start getting lost in judgmental thought. And it's very innocent. It's very innocent to get into that. This isn't a blame thing. This is just, begin to notice for yourself that if your relationships are difficult, the likelihood is that the only thing blocking the connection is that you've been paying more attention to your evaluation of the person, to your judgmental thinking about the person, to your ideas about the person and how the person should be. And, that's not to say that wisdom doesn't tell us at times to move on. I don't think that everyone is in the same position I was in, where every time I left my relationship, my thinking settled down, and suddenly I realized, oh my God, what have I done? You know, like, of course I want to be with this man. But that was the journey I went through, where I just kept leaving and kept noticing over a period of time. When I left, I settled down. And as that thinking settled down, that love that was always there came back to the surface. For some people, that's not going to be the case. For some people, it may be that wisdom tells you it's time to move on. It's time, there's an end to this particular relationship. So I'm by no means suggesting that my way is universal. But what I have noticed in the arena of relationships, not just romantically, is that connection is there, and love and presence and unity is there when we get when we pay less attention to our thinking about the person in front of us. So with that in mind, I do think we can fall in love with anyone over and over and over again. In fact, 11 years down the line, I would say today I'm more in love with my partner than I was in the earlier days. And that is a revelation to me, because I really was so convinced on many occasions that it wasn't meant to be. We weren't supposed to be together. We weren't compatible. We weren't this, we weren't that. And so there is hope here in realizing that we can have a new experience of people in any moment. And the less we pay attention to the storms that are going through our mind, sorry, I have Facebook open, guys. The less we pay attention to the storms that are going through our mind about the person, and the less we are listening to that evaluating dialogue, the more we're actually with the people in front of us. Now, that's not to say some people aren't idiots. You know, that some people in the world we just don't gel with, right? But there is something really innocent in just seeing that, you know, we can have a different experience of the idiots. We can have a new experience of whoever's in front of us. One of the mistakes I see people make is that they drag the past into the present moment. Oh, well, you did this last week, or you said this last time, or you behaved this way the other time. And it's futile to do that, because essentially there's no room for freshness, newness, possibility-ness when we bring up the past. Now, that's not to say that you would condone someone's behavior, or you would just, you know, but there is something about really just being present to the person in front of you. One of the things that's really helped me when I'm up against someone who I'm perceiving as challenging or difficult or controlling is to see the state of mind that's at play. You know, in general, we humans just want to be connected and liked for the most part. And so when I see or come across someone being particularly difficult, I used to take that very personally and make it about me. You know, they had it in for me, or they're against me, or, oh no, what have I done wrong that they're behaving or reacting this way? And what really helped me is in really understanding that people's behaviors are reflective of the state of mind they're in at the moment. They're not reflective of our self-worth. You know, people, my clients sometimes come to me and say, well, I deserve better, you know, you know, why do I keep attracting this type of situation or this type of person? They make it personal. They make it about themselves, innocently as a mistake, not seeing that really people are just playing out the game of life with whatever thinking they're in that moment. So there is something about seeing that, you know, like I remember for myself just recently, like I went into the kitchen, this is when I was home in Ireland, and I saw my father, and, you know, he kind of at home was like all of us in a habitual thinking. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have habitual thinking when we're in the same environment all the time, and we might not be aware of it. But in my father's case, at home, he's just really busy-minded. There's just a lot of stuff to do. And so I used to take it really personal when he would respond abruptly or negatively or dismissively. And it occurred to me on this trip home to say, hey, Daddy, do you want to go out of the house and do something together? Why don't we go out? And although initially he wasn't open to that because he was just so caught up in what he had to complete, when we did finally go out for the day, he was like a different person. And what I saw in that is that his thinking changed as he left his habitual environment. And he was able to stop, in my view, basically paying attention to all of the noise. And he was then back in a higher state of mind, and the world looked brighter, and back in that appreciation of life. And that's really so beautiful about how the mind works. You know, our thinking is subject to change in an instant. Now, it doesn't mean you have to change your environment all the time in order to be okay. But there is something about really depersonalizing and seeing that the person in front of you is up against a lot of thought. It's the curse of humanity. And when they don't know that, the best they can do is behave aggressively, abruptly, negatively, depending on the level of noise they're in. Again, this isn't to say that you put up with it and you kind of just say, oh, poor you, you're in a low state of mind. That's not what I'm saying here. But there is something about when you really see that it's not about you, you kind of come at people with a deeper compassion. You know, I came at my relationship with a new understanding and a deeper compassion. And the same with my father, you know, and my family, you know, with a deeper understanding and a higher level of compassion. Now, if you want to explore more about what I'm sharing and where this comes from, I highly recommend that you look at sydbanks.com, because this is all coming really directly from Sydney Banks's teachings around the principles of thought, mind, and consciousness. So you can check him out if you'd like to hear more about what I'm sharing here, but I'm directing this understanding around relationships for the sake of today's Grace Note. So let me know, like, what are your questions about relationships? What are you objecting to with what I'm sharing? Or what are you agreeing with? You know, is there a relationship in your life that you're just thinking of quitting or ending? And if so, you know, share with me, write to me, or message in the comments below here on YouTube if you like. You know, what is it that you are up against when it comes to relationships? What do you want to hear more about? And I'll get back to you. You know, again, I was so convinced that I was quitting my relationship, like maybe once a year for 10 years. And I'm so glad that I listened to wisdom. And the best my wisdom could bring me at the time was to leave for a few days, and to move out for a few days. And I did that. And every time I did that, my thinking quietened down. And the feelings of connection and love came back up. So whether you're dealing with a difficult romantic relationship, or you're dealing with a difficult work relationship or family relationship, personal relationship, it doesn't really matter. You know, what's really the common denominator here is starting to recognize that when people are in low states of mind, there's going to be less connection between you both. You know, when you have two people showing up, both in low states of mind, it just becomes like this. So back off in those moments. You know, do your best. You've heard this video, you know better now. Back off if you can, and just come back to the relationship or the situation from a quieter, more centered place, and, you know, have your say what you need to say. Again, this isn't about being a doormat and, oh, you know, it's just their state of mind, so I let them do what they want to me. That's not what this is. This is an understanding, pointing you back to compassion, but having you strong in the process. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll be back to you soon with another grace note. Lots of love. Ciao.